In tennis, there's a rare, calm moment when the sport seems to recognize itself in a new player. With a kind of silence that only occurs when those who genuinely comprehend brilliance stop talking and simply observe, not loudly or with fanfare. That was with Alex. And the person who was paying the closest attention wasn't a writer, a coach, or even a current player. Mirka Federer was the one. For years, the world has undervalued this woman. A woman who, when she eventually leaned in, completely shifted the topic of conversation to a 20-year-old Filipino girl who was already engaged in an unusual activity. But to understand why Mirka's attention matters so much, you have to go back. The world has been misinformed about her for a long time, so you need to know who she really is. Most people know her as Roger's wife. The woman in the player's box, the one clutching the kids, the one grinning through 5-set finals with a level of poise that makes you question whether she is composed differently than the rest of us. Indeed, she is all of those things. However, she is much more than that, and one of the worst mistakes the tennis world has continuously made is to reduce her to a supporting part in someone else's story. Born Miroslava Vavřinec, Mirka Federer was a professional tennis player who represented Switzerland internationally before becoming Mrs. Federer. In 2000, she participated in the Olympics in Sydney. From the baseline, where everything was on the line and a crowd was watching every breath she took, she experienced the strain of a big match firsthand rather than from a cozy seat. Her playing career ended earlier than anyone would have liked due to a foot injury, but instead of giving up on the sport, she put all of her competitive expertise and unused passion into the person she had fallen in love with at those same Olympic Games. Consider the results of that combination over a 20-year period. You take someone who already understood professional tennis from a player's point of view and give her 20 years to watch it from the top, sit next to the coaching teams, travel to every major tournament, and listen to every discussion about footwork, tactics, mental toughness, and what makes the good from the truly great. According to Roger, she kept him grounded and helped him maintain his identity even when his popularity tried to draw him in a different direction. However, there was another thing going on in the background that no one discussed. Mirka was becoming into one of the sport's most astute talent spotters. Not formally. Not with a press release or a title. Naturally, those who spend enough time in a place soon learn to speak it fluently. After Roger's retirement in September 2022, Mirka was able to view tennis without being influenced by the experiences of a single player for the first time in more than 20 years. She had a view of the entire field. She had the authority to pose the question that only someone with her experience could. Who will be the next? Training on a set of clay courts in Mallorca, Spain, was already the solution. While the rest of the world is still asleep, they are already putting in the kind of hours that covertly produce champions. At the age of 12, Alex emerged victorious in one of the world's most prominent juvenile championships, Les Petites, which serves as a kind of crystal ball for the sport. She received a scholarship to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca thanks to that win, and at the age of 13, her family made the kind of tough, loving, and terrifying choice that only families of future champions typically have to make. She was sent there, alone, to train in a language she was still learning, to compete daily against children who had been prepared for this since they could handle a racket, and to travel to a nation where she had not grown up. And Alex stayed. For a period of 7 years. She was not merely a graduate of the Nadal Academy. It was there that she was constructed. On those clay courts, she exercised until the motions came naturally to her. She grew up, ate, and struggled in those institutions. In interviews, she has stated that the academy built upon her foundation in a way that enabled her to accomplish all of her goals. Before the majority of the world even knew her name, she worked quietly and tirelessly for 7 years. This is when the narrative changes, since Federer's affiliation with this specific academy is neither coincidental nor incidental. It is essential to everything. Speaking candidly about the Rafa Nadal Academy, Roger Federer has shown true warmth and trust, the kind of trust you only give to something you firmly believe in. He and Mirka sent their own kids to train there. He made a big joke about being concerned that they would return as left-handers, which is a very Federer way of showing appreciation and affection for something that is both his greatest friend and rival. Jokes aside, though, that degree of participation has significance. It implies that the Federers were more than just spectators of the academy. They had a connection to it. They strolled those hallways with their own kids. Then, in July 2025, Roger returned to the academy with Mirka and their twin daughters, Charlene Riva and Mila Rose. He signed autographs. He posed for shots with youthful trainees. And Mirka was there for all of it, walking the same ground that Alex had walked for 7 years, standing on the same courts where Alex had developed herself into what she was becoming. You must take a moment to consider that image because it is more significant than it first appears. Mirka Federer, with all of her experience, all of her background, all of her awareness of what it takes to survive and prosper at the very top of the sport, standing in Alex's childhood home. That is not insignificant. That is a convergence of two universes at the same address, and someone with Mirka's eye for the game does not pass through a place like that and feel nothing. However, the Federer community wasn't done talking about Alex, and the next person to speak up caused everyone in the tennis community to pause and pay notice. Paula Nicone does not take compliments lightly. Pete Sampras won 14 Grand Slam championships under his tutelage. During one of the most dominant periods of the Swiss legend's career, he stood behind Roger Federer. When Paula Nicone sits down to discuss a tennis player, those who are familiar with the game know that his remarks have significance that most people just do not. The tennis community therefore leaned forward when he made an appearance on Tennis Channel Live and began discussing Alex. Her grin, according to him, brightens every space. He recalled being impressed by the poise and modesty with which she handled the situation when he saw her defeat Iga Swiatek. He expressed his admiration for her game. He discussed her ability to take the ball early, her hand-eye coordination, and her ability to reroute under duress. Here's why those particular words are so important. Taking the ball early and rerouting while under duress. It's not a universal compliment. These are high-level technical insights, the kind of words used by a coach who has spent decades closely observing greatness and is starting to spot its early warning signs in a new player. Under pressure, grace, and humility. Nicone was present for Roger Federer's ascent. Therefore, he was more familiar with the characteristics that were used to characterize him than nearly anybody else. It was not coincidental that he was using the same word when discussing a 20-year-old from the Philippines, and anyone who paid enough attention could see it. Nicone is not a separate entity. He converses with Roger. The Federer circle is where he moves. And everything he said would have been heard by Mirka, who spent 20 years in the midst of the world's most complex tennis debates. His compliments came as Alex was getting ready to make her Indian Wells debut as the 31st seed, having already defeated players like Jasmine Paolini and Dana Vekic in 2026. This was hardly a coach giddy with anticipation. This was acknowledgement of someone who was already producing top-notch results, winning, and turning up when it mattered. And the Filipino tennis community, one of the most ardent and devoted fan bases in all of sports, didn't only react when Roger Federer's coach validated your player with that kind of love and detail. They exploded. Because it's more than simply a praise to receive that sort of confirmation from that kind of source. It seems more akin to a coronation. However, this is the part of Alex's tale that occasionally gets overlooked in favor of celebrity connections and well-known names. It is the portion that should be presented loudly, clearly, and according to its own terms. Regardless of who is watching, what she has truly accomplished on a tennis court at the age of 20 is astounding. She was ranked 143rd in the world at the start of the 2025 season. Miami followed. She entered one of the largest WTA 1000 tournaments on the schedule as a wild card entrant with no responsibility on anyone's part to take her seriously, and she accomplished something that tennis journalists are still trying to comprehend. Iga Swiatek was defeated by her. She then defeated Yelena Ostapenko. She then defeated Madison Keys. 3 winners of the Grand Slam, consecutively, as an unpredictable card. And in the midst of something that would have broken many players with considerably more experience, she managed to do it without losing herself in the moment, without changing who she was under pressure, and without forgetting who she was. She termed that Miami run the best of her career so far. Everything clicked, according to her. When she looked back, she described it as insane, which is accurate since it really was. She was defeating the top 20 players and setting new records for Filipino tennis by the 2025 U.S. Open. She was ranked 29th in the world by March 2026 and was in the Miami Open round of 16. She continued to rise and break through new barriers. And she bears it all along with something that most athletes her age just don't have to. She speaks for the whole country. Millions of people back home watch, hope, and devote a portion of themselves to her performance each time she takes the court. The idea that Filipinos should be at the pinnacle of this sport is reinforced by every upset, main draw appearance, and deep run. Alex has been open about the costs associated with that weight. She has discussed the psychological toll, the stress, and the process of learning to take a break from tennis mode and refill her cup with something unrelated to the game, so she can return to it fully. That degree of emotional intelligence, that self-awareness,